I wish to call to order the meeting of the Rutherford County Public Safety Committee for August. So good to see each and every one of you here this evening. We'll begin with the approval of our minutes from our Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Reed. I would apologize for missing the meeting, but family's first, and I am married, so it wasn't much of a choice, but sorry I wasn't here. I did review the meeting on YouTube, went through the minutes, find everything to be in order without objection. I approve that they be, I make the motion to approve as mailed.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the minutes have been approved. Public comments, I don't think we have had any called in, so we'll move on from there. First item is Forensic Center. This was asked to be brought back at this meeting right here. It also was a subject at the property management. They also have referred it back to us also. So this will be discussion here tonight dealing with that. To get you the information that you requested from the last meeting, we are going to have a Zoom-in presentation for you to hear from Denise Martin from our EMS department, and she is in Washington, D.C., taking care of business for us there. She was unable to be here, but to do the job she has to be there for a particular meeting, and we understand that, but we're going to attempt to do that. So I guess we'll have to have a suspension of the rules to allow her to come in at this time right now from this area. I'm going to do that if we can. Do I have a motion to do so?
So moved.
A motion
Second.
to do so in a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. So if we can have that Zoom to come in for Denise. There she is. Okay, Ms. Martin, we'll let you just make your presentation if you'd like.
Thank you, Chair. And can you hear me okay?
Hear you fine.
Thank you. Well, thank you for allowing me to join you this evening by Zoom. Again, I do apologize for having to do it in this format. I'd much rather be there in person with you, but unfortunately we did have a mandatory conference for one of our grants up in DC, which I have to attend. So thank you for allowing me to present tonight. I'm hopeful that the business plan was disseminated to you all with enough time for you to read and digest all the information it contained. I'm also hopeful that each of you have recognized that this facility is an absolute need now, and that a plan needs to be activated now. We are experiencing unacceptable deficits that require a better option, quite frankly. As the Mayor has emphasized previously, the ask to you as the Public Safety Committee is to forward to budget a consideration of $1 million, already budgeted for, as I understand, for design, architectural and engineering plans for an appropriate forensic facility. This would enable Rutherford County to know the real cost of the project and to use this knowledge along with those facility plans to ultimately secure funding through private and or governmental grantors. We need these tools to demonstrate that Rutherford County is invested in this project, and keeping in mind that those particular costs would be a county responsibility for this project. It has been stressed in the past that a Rutherford County forensic facility is not a new idea. Carl Hudgens, our former EMS director, saw this coming over 15 years ago. He saw that our death investigation numbers were steadily increasing along with the population increases. And with this came an increased burden on EMS as we transitioned from a primarily rural county to one that is now primarily urban. So this is not a new idea. It's not my idea or the Mayor's idea, although I am extremely grateful he immediately recognized its importance. The County Medical Examiner's Office is one that performs a public service, and it has medical, legal, public health, and judicial obligations. We have reached a point now where we as a county need to take true ownership of these responsibilities and provide much better services both to our constituents as well as our law enforcement and judicial partners. I believe the Rutherford County Sheriff's Office will actually be speaking to you in more detail in regards to the issues that they are experiencing. The service at the Nashville facility, operated by a for-profit private company, has itself grown into a multi-state, high-volume vendor for whom Rutherford County is not the priority. Like many high-volume for-profit vendors, customer service has deteriorated when compared to that of smaller, specialized, more prioritized operations. But unlike many high-volume vendors, prices and fees have skyrocketed, evidenced by 3 substantial increases over the last 3 years or so, each occurring mid-fiscal year, leaving no opportunity to budget for them. Our autopsy fees are currently at $2,300 per autopsy, which is much higher than any of the other regional forensic centers. If the trend continues, and we anticipate it will, we can anticipate further increases within the next few years and the foreseeable future. That fee does include a profit margin necessary to keep the parent company interested and invested. Again, these services are intended to be a public service. There is a real need now. To construct and ready a facility for operation is going to take at least 2 years. There is currently a single point of failure in Middle Tennessee as relates to those forensic services. If the National Regional Forensic Center's building was to become compromised in any manner, lose its accreditation, or the operating managing company simply refuses to take our cases, which did happen at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, we will literally be at a standstill. I sincerely believe that Rutherford County needs to get behind the investment and the project now. Currently, around $750,000 is leaving the county and being paid to a for-profit private company every year. We have no input or involvement in budget decisions, and these fees are only going to be going up along with those autopsy numbers, and this is going to be on a continual basis throughout the future, and likely with unbudgeted for impact, given the historic lack of notice. With a county facility, these funds will stay in county. The Commission will be able to track, have input, and involvement of all growth and budgetary considerations. Most importantly to my office and our partner agencies, quality will improve. The request today is for your approval to send onto the Budget Committee a consideration for an already budgeted $1 million to research, design, and architecturally plan for an appropriate forensic facility. Tools that Rutherford County need to be able to petition for funding from several very real potential grantors. Relating back to their business plan, if there is any particular questions or anything about the statement I've made tonight, I would gladly, with the chairman's agreement and approval, address any of those.
Commissioners, if you have questions, Ms. Martin will be glad to answer those questions for you, so please address those questions to her. Commissioners? Ms. Olive?
Question. Hey, Ms. Martin, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, Commissioner.
Sorry we played phone tag, but I appreciate you reaching out to make sure I was clear on this. I do have a couple of questions. First question is, what necessitates an autopsy as far as the number of anticipated autopsies?
Well, the National Association of Medical Examiners and the SWIG MDI group, which is a scientific working group for medical legal death investigation, anticipates that we should plan for anywhere between 0.5 and 1 per 1,000 population. That's just given on research and historic review. Per the Tennessee Code, we are statutorily obligated to investigate certain types of death. anytime somebody passes away from unexplained circumstances, that could be from suspected natural causes, but no medical history to back that up. Obviously, anything that involves any type of criminal element, so any indication of foul play or homicidal causes, suicide, motor vehicle accidents. There's quite a substantial list. Anytime that anybody is in a vulnerable circumstance, such as being in custody or a state facility. So there's a fairly long list, but there's certainly ones that we are obligated to investigate as a county medical examiner. And then if there are findings that would be helpful either in judicial or even civil litigation, then the case should move forward to autopsy examination. I hope that helps.
Yes, it does. Mentioned in the report is a designation of $1 million supposedly for planning, architectural design, et cetera, to get an idea of how much the overall cost would be. I'm not sure if this is a question for Ms. Martin or for you, Chairman.
No,
The $1 million, where is that allocated from?
you can ask Ms. Martin.
Are you familiar with that, Ms. Martin, where the $1 million would come from?
From my understanding, and I think our financial director would be best to answer that, but from my understanding, it was already included in the mayor's budget when we were seeking the state funds. The $1 million is, a traditional or expected, anticipated number that the state reviews for, a facility of this type and size.
Commissioner, if we can get a more detail from the mayor, he's involved in this, the mayor, and I thought Michael was in here, but so we'll let the mayor come forward or whoever. We'll let the two right there decide how they want to answer that. Glad I've got two choices right here to work from. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joe Carr, Mayor, Rutherford County. Commissioner, the funding for that $1 million, which is for design and engineering, is coming out of approximately $4.8 million that the county has left over that we did as a set-aside in 22-23 budget year for an emergency transfer station in the event that Middle Point closed down. After discussions with Michael Smith, he deemed that the most appropriate placed and least impactful to the budget. Michael, am I saying that correctly?
During the close of the 22 fiscal year, the commission committed $5 million for an emergency transfer station during that fiscal 22 year. Over the course of the fiscal 23 year, we used $250,000 of that for the design of the transfer station. So that leaves the $4.75 million in a committed fund balance that would need to be appropriated for this to move forward.
And so it can be appropriated for this.
That's correct.
In addition to the transfer station.
That's correct. So this was unassigned fund balance money set aside that the commission wanted to have a pot set aside for an emergency. And so when me and the mayor's office talked about this, now that we are going to the bond market for the transfer station, we thought that this funding could now become available for this if that's what this body and the mayor's office wished.
Okay, thank you.
And if I could just add, so we're looking at an engineering and design time frame of about 9 months. So the actual funding for the proposed forensic center wouldn't come before this body until 24-25.
Okay, and one more question. You listed here current Rutherford County Medical Examiner Services. Looks like this is, Mr. Smith probably can tell me better, but it's maybe 1.1-ish, 1.2-ish million. Where is this currently in our current budget? The current fees, where do these items reside? Under which
You talking about
budget?
the autopsies?
Yes,
They come through the ambulance service.
ambulance service.
EMS.
Okay, great, thank you.
Commissioner James?
I had a point of inquiry about what Michael Smith just stated. So if I can ask, Michael, if you can come back up, I have a question on that.
You were asking about the fees for the autopsy services. Those are actually budgeted. Some of those are budgeted, a portion of that in the county's general fund, but those are budgeted every year.
Just part something that I just want to make sure I heard right and I'm clear. We had funds set aside specifically for the transfer station, and instead of using part of that or that money for that, when we went to and minimize what we went to the bond market with, we're going straight to bond market for full amount. So now you're hoping that those funds can now be rearranged somewhere else to be used for another program. Kind of that shell game leaves kind of a bad taste in my mouth, but I want to make sure I heard that right and I'm understanding that right.
The commission, back in FY22, before my time here, did move money out of unassigned fund balance, $5 million for an emergency transfer station. That fund balance does keep enough cash flow in the fund to make payroll. So yes, I could deplete the fund balance further. We talked about that during the budget process. However, you would do so at the just of not making payroll or a catastrophic event. So what they did is set aside a committed, moved from unassigned to committed. So if this transfer station was built, it will go back into unassigned fund balance to help our fund balance ratios. But yes, you are correct. We could have borrowed 15 and used 5, and if that's what this body's wishes were, then that's what we would have done.
If I could, I did have one more question that I forgot to ask.
Sure, Commissioner.
Can you explain, Ms. Martin, the cost recovery, what this means when you say cost recovery, the $173,550?
Certainly, to the regional forensic centers, the state reimburses a certain amount. So if we were to be performing our own autopsy service, the state would refund or reimburse us $150 per case. If we did partial autopsies, which are those external exams and toxicology studies, they pay $100 per case. For outside consultation, there are certain fees that would be charged. Anytime there's an infant or child autopsy, the state pays $1,250. And again, this is only if we're doing our own autopsy cases. Currently, for those cases that we send to the National Forensic Center, the National Forensic Center are getting reimbursed these, even though we're paying for the autopsy. So these are reimbursements that the state would pay to us if we had our own regional forensic center.
Now, these recovery costs, is this just, for instance, if we only use the center for Rutherford County? Does that mean if we were able to come into agreement with other counties, that would increase these recovery costs?
Yes, ma'am. So it's if we do any autopsies or examinations or toxicology studies, as a forensic center, the state would pay us. So whether they are Rutherford County cases, or if we were to expand and offer those services to surrounding counties, we would get reimbursed for those cases as well, yes.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Beverly?
are we anticipating still pursuing some funding from the state on this project, maybe in a different manner through their budget or different grants through the next fiscal year, next General Assembly?
Yes, certainly. It's not off the table that they could. It just would not be through the FSAC group. It's not through the stimulus funds, but certainly we could put a request in or an ask for, and I think that's essentially what the outcome of when we unfortunately were dropped from the FSAG agenda was that it would be reviewed over this next year and potentially have that funding opportunity from a different funding, more in line with the general fund of the governor's office. Traditionally, all 5 regional forensic centers that are currently in existence have had some funding or investment from the state. So it's certainly not out of the question that we could receive this. And this is what the hope is for, if that we move forward and get these plans and costs in a realistic format, that we can take that to not only the state, but also potentially private grantors that have expressed some interest for sure. So absolutely, this is the potential to be able to use this as a tool going forward to show that Rutherford County is truly serious about having their own forensic center and are invested in it.
It's just we're not able to really pursue grants until the structure is actually built and operational, correct?
No, there will be grants that will be open to us once we are up and running for sure. There are several BGA grants. In fact, I'm on one of them now at their conference. So there are some available grants to us once we are up and running. But the hope is to be able to use the architectural and engineering plans as well as a realistic cost estimate as to for constructing the facility to be able to get those grants to help us build. So it's twofold for sure.
Thank you. Just to summarize, I spent a little time pulling some figures, fellow commissioners, and if our current operations, we're seeing a 5% annual growth on the expense of an autopsy in this county. We're seeing a 2.4% growth on the amount of autopsies we're performing every year. But that doesn't even touch the cost we're seeing when we have to transport these folks up to Nashville and then back down. That fee is about $50,000 a year, but it grows annually about 3%. You factor in the medical examiner's office that we currently operate has a growth expenditure attached to it. If you look at our current path that we continue on, by year 10, we will be spending altogether $3.5 million a year on average, based on those growth projections. However, if we look at a cost mitigating procedure by adopting this forensic center, we have the ability to offset some of these costs with revenue. Now keep in mind, I want to say we're using cost mitigation. This is not an enterprise fund, this is not for profit. But we have the opportunity to offset some of our expenditures here and have some sort of control of our operating expenses because it is now in-house. We are not subject to a for-profit company. I'm interested to see what the Sheriff's Office says about this project, but even at year 10, my projections show that it's a $500,000 a year savings to pursue this plan, and it gives us some degree of control. But once debt service is retired on this, it's a pretty exponential what our annual cost savings could be. So I think it's worth us pursuing this project in order to get some sort of control, but I'd like to really hear from the Sheriff's Office to see how this would really flow with their operations.
Mayor?
Chairman, are we still, the rules suspended? We're not in session?
Yes, we are. We need to go back. Well, we still have, Ms. Martin is still on the floor as a participant in what we're doing.
Okay.
Answering questions.
I just want to make sure.
No, we haven't gone into business yet. We're still going to have,
all right.
She's still there to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for letting me come back up. Commissioner Beverly, thank you for that. I want to make sure that we understand the purpose of the $1 million is the thing that we're asking for tonight, not the full appropriation, which we expect to be 12 to 14. The reason the $1 million is important, in addition to the architectural engineering fee, is that that $1 million will provide, according to members of our state delegation, the leverage, hopefully, that they need in going to the governor's office and putting some portion of this $12 to $14 million in the budget. Do we expect it to be the full amount? No. Would we like for it to be? Yes. But it's going to be difficult for us to make the ask for a portion of the $12 to $14 million unless we have made the commitment to the architectural engineering part of this. The second part of that is it also gives us leverage going forward. I think somebody asked about additional grants. We're in discussion with the Christy Houston Foundation. It's part of their process that the county have already made some level of financial commitment in this process. And so this $1 million actually demonstrates that. If for some unfortunate reason, after we have made the commitment for the design and engineering cost of $1 million, and we get to the budget year, and for whatever reason, situations don't line up where we can move forward with the actual construction, we still have the architectural and engineering design. We have the location so that we can still fund it at a later date if this body so chooses. But the architectural engineering design gives us a couple leverage points with the governor's budget, hopefully in the winter and spring of 2024, and then of course hopefully it'll help with our negotiations with the Christy Houston Foundation. So I think it's important that this be the first step because it does provide a number of leverage points. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner James?
Well, do we have any letters of intent with any of our state delegation saying that they would bring this up on the state chamber? Do we have any letters of intent with any other counties potential to bring in their autopsies to us? Do we have any kind of communication across the board showing that if we move forward? I guess for me, I don't like spending $900,000 or $1 million for something that I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel yet. So I don't see that, and I'd like to see. Or is anybody? What was the last conversation we had with MTSU originally when this was first brought to us? Was the idea of them partnering with us to do their educational side? What were the talks left at with that? Those are some of the immediate questions that come to mind with the recent comments.
Anybody want to?
Mr. Chairman, I feel like just economically, and again, I want to hear what the Sheriff's Department has to say. If they're running into potential issues or would like to see some changes, they may not be the only ones that would like to see changes that are customers of the Nashville Center. So if Nashville Center is growing at a 5% annual operating expense growth and we're able to provide some stabilization on the cost, I think economically we're able to provide a service because we're not enterprise, we're not for-profit, whereas the Nashville company is.
I get that. I'm just looking for any kind of communication that is up to date with what the status of the potential for that to come in.
I think
because it's I see what you're saying with it. I'm trying to find where are the talks at? Where are we now? What is the likelihood of having the extra revenue? I've got other questions concerning that I mentioned to you on the phone the other night. Was with our center, once our center is up and moving, how many doctors are we required to keep on staff? If one leaves, are we shut down completely by state ordinances until we get something? Look at our PAWS department. We keep raising the salary for that to try to get somebody in, a veterinarian, and we can't get that position filled. Could we have a potentially $14 million building sitting with the lights turned off for unknown amount of time, waiting for? I mean, it's just a lot of the what ifs I'm trying to work through in my head to understand some of this.
Commissioner James, if you'll allow me to take off my chairman hat and speak to you as a commissioner. You're speaking of hypotheticals, I guess, and what you're bringing up here. I'll give you a hypothetical too. Within this report that you have right here, if you'll look on page 3, look down there at the last paragraph, it mentions the Nashville RFC, which we are doing our autopsies at this time. They're doing 52 counties, 50% of the state of Tennessee, what they're doing right now. They're at full capacity of what they're doing here. They are also on contract with Davidson County. In other words, they have a contract to take them. They're going to take them regardless. And that contract is a pretty good sized contract. Well, they're basically being paid in what, and I'm just saying this speakingly on my opinion, what we pay them, we're the cream. That's extra money to keep them going right there. Right now, they're at capacity. They're doing things that if we were doing here, I just say I wouldn't necessarily like that, but this is where we have to go. Across the state of Tennessee, there are 5 of these facilities. One in Memphis, one in Nashville, one in Knoxville, one in Johnson City, and one down here in Chattanooga. Chattanooga only takes Chattanooga. That's all they deal with. Just so happens we get to the point where in Nashville they reach total capacity. Now what do? We just got through voting for a transfer station with everybody all here in total fear of what happens if Republic stops taking our garbage. What do? So we go to a transfer station, and we're going to build that to take care of our garbage. What happens if RFC all of a sudden says, we're not taking your autopsies? What does that do to our sheriff's department? What does that do to families who are needing an autopsy to find out what happened to their loved one? What do? Well, we have to go to these other facilities. Memphis is one that probably won't even take us. We can't go to Chattanooga because we're not from Chattanooga. Go to Knoxville or Johnson City. Knoxville or Johnson City. The distance that it is to go to Knoxville, the distance it is to go to Johnson City, you think of the time that's added to that. Not only is the time is it added to take the person there, but also to get the autopsy done and also to return it. And then not only that, if it has to deal with a situation within law enforcement, that means a detective that has to come from the sheriff's department has to go too. Well, he has to develop or she has to develop her schedule to that time too. So that means we are adding that cost to what we do there, and that means that cost adds on to all of this within the county. And it doesn't mean that that detective who goes up there for the autopsy, who has to be present, doesn't mean it'll be done the day they get there. It means whenever the schedule is doing it, which we run into all the time. We're down here in Nashville, we may be expecting to be having the autopsy done that morning. It's late that afternoon or that night, depending on what works there. So what we have done, not only added to the cost of what we're doing in autopsies, we're also delaying the time for the family. We're delaying the time for the funeral services. We're delaying the time for that body, which, if you'll think about it, a body deteriorates, which means it causes problems there too. So we're adding to those problems. We're in a situation where we run into the same thing with what we have to do there with what we're having to do with our garbage. We have no place for it to go. And what we're trying to do is provide something that makes it cost effective for the county and something available for our citizens. And that's the way I look at it. I've been looking at it for 4 years or 5 years. And you mentioned letters of intent from MTSU and from other counties. Getting those letters of intent, I don't know if we'll get those without something in hand showing them, hey, this is what we are going to do, and this is where we're going. I've been around and around that bush at MTSU, and they say, yeah, we would like to participate in this, but they don't have something for them to actually see what we are going to do. And I don't think until we have that will we have those letters of intent, what you're talking about there. I see exactly what you're saying. You want something positive in your hand, and I would love to have those too. But the positive thing I have in my hand right now is, what do we do if all of a sudden this doesn't happen? And we got close to it. Oh, we got so close to it back in 21. Only a few of us were scared. We were looking all over the place for what we do, and it can happen. So that's it. I'll put my chairman hat back on and go from there. But I was just trying to answer your question and what I know and what I see. So if someone else wants to answer that, and I think we got some others out here. I noticed Chairman McAdoo come in, and it was in his committee too, and he can answer some of those questions too, if y'all would like to hear from them too. Commissioner Rather?
2 years ago, there was a special called emergency meeting that took place in here. And there was people, health department, everybody was here, commissioners, because of COVID. And there was some fear involved there, quite a bit. We ended up, Mayor Ketchum got some refrigerated trucks for bodies. One of the saddest things I've ever had to listen to and talk about in my lifetime in Rutherford County. So now we're being told, whether you want to believe it or not, that there's a new variant or it's coming back. Former Director Hudgens and I talked, and I think Director Clark and I talked about, there was a train wreck somewhere, a chemical spill. I'm like, what if that happens here? What are we going to do? So Commissioner James brought up these what ifs. So what if there's a catastrophic event? What are we going to do then? What if this? What if that? The largest word in the English language is the word if. But like I told a few guys before the meeting, you got to hope for the best, but plan for the worst. And we all live in this world, and we all know the way things are going. We have got to plan for the worst. Now, 3 counties that our closest forensic center serves. So Rutherford County is somewhere in the middle. We're not priority. So I think about our citizens. I think about my parents, my children, my wife, my friends, my family. They get shipped off to another county, and they're just one. Rutherford County, if we did this, here's that word if again, when we do this, we can prioritize and put Rutherford County citizens at the top of the list. Now, going back to another discussion, was in my household, we have money somewhere, and we plan. But then life changes, or our priorities may change, and we move money that was earmarked here and go ahead and do it over here. It's not a shell game. It's financial management. And so I think that's what the mayor and Michael may have said. It was money that was there for this purpose, not a forensic center, but for emergency situations, right? So that's where that $1 million is coming from. And MTSU, the General Assembly, I wouldn't commit to squat if I didn't know Rutherford County had a little skin in the game. So that $1 million is us saying, we got skin in the game and we're serious. And you'll be amazed. I think, in my opinion, I think we'll be amazed at who rallies behind us. We already have a lobbyist at Capitol Hill, a group of them. Put them to work. But we got to have skin in the game, and we got to plan for the worst, hope for the best, and the best, if we do this, is our citizens get top priority, and that's who we're here for and by. And I'll finish with that.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Oliver.
I motion to go back into session.
We have other individuals that I think you want to hear, the Sheriff's Department and all those. We can go back in session and Ms. Martin can, whatever y'all want to do. But you are making the motion, so if you made that
I'm making the motion.
You're making a motion,
If
go
I
back
don't
into
get a
session.
second, then it dies.
Do we have a second? We have a second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed,
Nay.
we're back in session.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to move this to budget to determine the financing of $1 million for the architectural plans for a forensic center.
Have a motion made to send this to budget. Have a second. Further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, there was another point I wanted to make, and it had to do somewhat with the what ifs, but it had to do something with an observation I'm seeing more and more. I've been a police officer up in Smyrna for almost 10 years. I am waiting longer and longer for an ambulance. Today, at 8 o'clock in the morning, half of the trucks on the north side of 840 were sitting at Stonecrest because they were transporting patients. Commissioner Oliver, that left your district without an ambulance. Commissioner Rather, large part of your district without an ambulance. Ambulance 6 was out there, so Commissioner McMurray, Commissioner James, without an ambulance. At the time, that left 2 trucks to cover what we needed. And today in the town of Smyrna, we needed 2 trucks on 1 wreck alone. Transport a patient, or 2 patients. We have a problem, but we have a potential here to start alleviating that. I'm not saying we look at funding another full station tonight, but if we are going to architecture and design, I would like to see one be put on the same side off Weekly Lane. It gives us access up to Couchville Pike. It gives us close access to Lowry Street to get up to Laverne, all the way down to Sam Ridley. If we do that tonight, it gives us the architecture and design that when we are ready, we are planned and ready, we can pull the trigger on putting another station on the north end of the county. Now, Jefferson Pike has a lot of growth, and there will be a need out there, but that is based on development growth. But I'm telling you, inside the town of Smyrna right now, and the city of Laverne, and the unincorporated parts of the county up north, we need another ambulance station. Right now, I pulled the stats from EMS, 2 times a day, we are pulling a truck from Murfreesboro to cover the north side. With a booming population growth up there, we need to look at this. So forgive me if I'm not too familiar. A friendly amendment to attach to this that we add, we also pursue architecture and design out of these funds for an ambulance station on the north side of the county to set us on the path to be prepared when the time comes we need to build it, we're ready. And we're not 9 months behind.
We've had a motion to amend.
I accept the amendment.
Have a second. Further discussion on the amendment? Madam Secretary, we call for a vote on the amendment.
Commissioner Sereno?
No.
Commissioner Rather?
No.
Commissioner McMurray?
Yes.
Commissioner James,
No.
Commissioner Beverly,
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver,
Aye.
Chairman Reed.
Do this to me every time. I'll say yes. The amendment passes.
Motion passes.
Now we're voting on the motion as amended.
Mr. Chairman, before we vote on that motion, let me, as a commissioner, I appreciate the opportunity to at least have input in this meeting. The Forensic Center, we were pretty much gung-ho with it, anticipating the majority of that Forensic Center being funded through a state grant. That fell through. We're not real sure why. There could have been some lobbying efforts going on from some other influential group or government that pulled that at the last minute. It was hurtful for this county for that to happen. The process that we're talking about tonight is committing some funds to maybe send a message to Nashville that we want the Forensic Center and we're interested enough in the Forensic Center to put some money up front. And that probably would send a positive message. And I'm in favor of that. I'm not committing my vote in the future to build this Forensic Center, but I would be committing my support to at least fund the $1 million to anticipate being able to go to Nashville with some positive news. Commissioner Rather made a good point a minute ago about a lobbyist, which will be there every day and lobby in our favor every day where we cannot. So all of those are positive things. What would actually sway my interest more than anything else is the statement made by the mayor, is that we will have the plans. Even though we may not want to do it next year, we will have the plans where we can do it the year after or the year after. So it would not be money wasted by any stretch of the imagination. A particular question that I would have, Commissioner Beverly brought it up, and I'm not sure who can answer this, but a lot of times when we've built buildings here over the last 15 years or so, we've built them with growth anticipation in mind. And I'm just wondering if our current thought process for the Forensic Center is offering that same opportunity for the growth that Commissioner Beverly was mentioning. Are we building it for our needs today, or are we designing it for what we would need over the next 20 years so we can kind of grow into it? It's better to pay for that up front than it is to try to add on to it at some later date. Can someone answer that particular question before this committee votes? Are we building that Forensic Center with growth potential in mind?
My understanding that's our plan, because of the fact that as Commissioner James has mentioned here, we are planning that there are other counties that probably will be coming in with us, and we're pretty well certain of it, that others will be coming that way, and we will have that possibility. People have asked where this will be built. It will be built in the Smyrna area, and that's what we'd be looking at. With the amendment that's been placed here, I know there has been discussion in that area right there. I can see where we'll be looking that way anywhere, and so there's no problem, I don't think, with us looking at that as a part of this too, that we can see where we can find some area down there with dealing with the ambulance service. I think our director I think he understands that too. So I think that's where it is. But yes, growth will have to be figured in this. We've done this with all of our public safety buildings. We understand that, where they are and what we got there. So we have to do that. This day and time within Rutherford County, you don't build something just for today. We no longer have a just for today. There's always a tomorrow. That answer what you need, Mr. Chairman?
Just wanted to make sure we are anticipating future growth, and sometimes it's scary to talk about the amount of growth that we're considering over the next 15, 20 years, and I just want to make sure that the facility we build is big enough to handle that growth over the next 15 years or so. Be money well spent in the design process as well as the building process when we get into it. Just wanted to make sure, is Ms. Martin is still on the line, if she could answer that, or if the mayor could answer that, or someone could answer that.
I think the mayor can answer that, because I think he's the one that would pretty much can tell us that. Are we planning this with growth in mind?
Yes, of course, this is growth in mind. We have currently approximately a 17-acre campus up there that includes the county clerk's office, and it includes the new convenience center. And so of the 17 acres, we have approximately 10 acres that are left available. And so we're going to configure this facility so that that'll be a 18 acre county campus with different facilities, as Commissioner Beverly said, an extremely fast-growing part of the county to service both Smyrna and Laverne, which is the point. I want to make sure that that the chairman, if you will allow me, that you still haven't voted on the bill, on the proposition. You've only voted on the amendment. So I want to make sure we don't leave without a vote. But with regard to the EMS station, it will be a separate building on the same campus. I just want to make sure, because the nature of the forensic center, it'll have to be very secure, and so actually the EMS station will probably be facing Weekly Lane to give it the quickest access, if we understand that right. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could you restate the now amended motion? Is it my understanding that now with the amended motion through, the motion on the table is to approve the $900,000 for the design of the forensic center and approve an unspecified amount for a ambulance or rescue service center?
May.
My apologies. It's $1 million design and engineering for the forensic center, and as per the amendment, to include design and engineering for an EMS station on the same location.
Can they be put in on the same session? My understanding from the
Can they do what?
material, can they be put in the same session, same building?
No.
Okay. So
Absolutely not.
It'd be two different.
It'd be absolutely not. The forensic center will be, like I said a minute ago, have to be a secure facility because of the nature of the work, but it will be on the same campus location. Probably the proposal internally has been the EMS station will probably have an exit, ingress, egress to Weekly, and then the forensic center will be on the western side of that particular lot.
And that's what I thought, and that's a concern for me overall with the matter is, it comes back to what Commissioner Rather had mentioned before, was priorities. We've got lots of potential capital projects coming down the pipe looking at us, mostly from the schools and so forth, and priorities that we keep going through. And if we keep adding, I mean, in the blink of an eye, we've just added the potential looking into another capital project.
Well, with all due respect, Commissioner, these priorities are the priorities that the mayor's office has shared with the county commissioner for quite some time. We're not adding any priorities.
I'm talking about with the ambulance.
I'm sorry?
I'm talking about with the ambulance center, though.
No, sir. Again, no, sir. These are priorities that we have established and discussed with the county commission for quite some time. I apologize that you're not aware of them, but there's nothing, we're not adding to the priorities. And at the appropriate time and before this body, I can go through the exact list of capital projects and those priorities at the appropriate time, Mr. Chairman, and what their approximate costs would be. And when we wanted to bring those online and what the annual cost and debt service would be. So we've certainly done the analysis and we'd be glad to share that with you.
Where's the ambulance center on our agenda tonight?
I'm sorry?
Where's the ambulance service on our agenda tonight that you brought up to build that? That's my point.
Right, so we're not funding the EMS ambulance center. What Commissioner Beverly has asked to do is include the design engineering as a part of the forensic center design engineering. So whether or not is approved or not is a separate issue. You're not approving a forensic center, nor are you approving an EMS center. You're approving an architectural and design engineering for both.
I get that, but no, it's I get that it's not for the structure itself. It's for the architectural design and plan for it. But like you said, and what readings I've found and been made available to me, that unless something is just completely overlooked and missed, which in my perspective I don't think so, that was a whole new element to be brought up in addition to the forensic center,
So
to design fee, and it's an unspecified amount for it. So it just kind of turns into, I'm weary of excessive capital projects, what that will end in the long run when we know we've got big capital projects coming already that, with the schools, with the elementary school, the potential of a high school coming, and just those long, bigger projects coming down the road. How much more of the analysis for the debt services overall that we're going to be at? What percentage increase can we look at down next budget?
We're not committing any capital project monies tonight. What we're committing to is.
I know that. I get that. I don't mean to cut you off, Mayor, but I respect the fact that
Thank you.
We're talking about the architectural design fee
Go ahead.
for the design.
That's exactly right. As they told us earlier, it takes 9 months to get these items back. We are pulling a truck from Murfreesboro to cover the north end of the county 2 times a day. I saw it with my own 2 eyes, 2 instances where half the trucks on the north end of the county were committed to calls. 1 call, or they were at Stonecrest, leaving 2 trucks to cover 4 zones. This is a growing and growing need as you see the growth out in your district and all through the town of Smyrna and in Laverne. What I am afraid of is we are going to face the need for an ambulance station there, and we are 9 months behind because we have to go through architecture and design. We are already voting to send out someone to survey this property, draw up plans with growth in mind for this parcel. Why not go ahead and say, hey, go ahead and plan for this as well. So we're ready to pull the trigger when we want to. It could be next fiscal. It could be fiscal of year 2030. We don't know that, but we are setting ourselves up to be 9 months ahead of schedule to do this, and we are already sending an engineer out there to draw up plans. When the time comes that we discuss funding the actual structure itself, we might get some sort of quantity discount because we're doing such a large-scale project. We may not. We may vote to proceed on one. We may vote to proceed on or both. What we're doing is we're putting something in our back pocket to say, you know what? We need a plan for the north end of the county because ambulance wait times are growing too much, but we're ready to go.
Commissioner Rather?
So we're committing to $1 million for design of a forensic center. I think that's first on the agenda. Where did the $1 million come from? Have we got some ideas from folks that say we can design it, do the architectural for $1 million? Is that?
That is what we have been told of what the cost would be for the architectural.
For the forensic center?
Yes.
Okay. So now, and I'm all for another building on the north side, ambulance service, but we're talking about a forensic center. $1 million, we've been told will cover architectural, design, engineering for a forensic center of a certain size. So my thing was separate the two when we get further down or other business, because who has given us an amount of money for architectural design and engineering for an ambulance service or an ambulance EMS building. How big is it going to be? What's it going to look like? We don't have those numbers. So if we've been told $1 million for a forensic center, that's what we're approving. That's why I voted no to the amendment, because I'm concerned. We've been told $1 million for this one building, and now we're throwing in an additional. We'll have to come back in a month or two, figure out how much that's going to cost. Let's separate the two, deal with the forensic center, put that to rest, move on. We can discuss later that building and agree to get bids or get a number. We don't have a number. But the $1 million is not going to be enough for both if one is $1 million.
Mayor?
Commissioner Rather, you make an excellent point, and I want to address exactly what we're talking about when we talk about the architectural engineering design for the forensic center. That'll include the, as Commissioner Beverly was saying, the engineering and geotechnical, which is absolutely critical, which hadn't been done out there for that facility. When he made the amendment, what that does is we will include, it's really easy to wrap that up in part of the forensic without changing that price. We already have a set of plans that are already pre-approved in a number of locations for EMS facility. It's really not that difficult of a building to architect and to design. The critical part is the geotechnical and site work, as you've said. It's easy for us to do that whole, what's remaining of that lot, as we find the best location for that forensic center on that 10 acres. Then, because of the geotechnical engineering associated with site engineering, not the actual structural engineering, that'll be done at the same time. And I've just got through talking to Michael without really any appreciable additional cost. So I was talking to Michael Smith back there just literally 5 minutes ago with regard to the amendment that I didn't know Commissioner Beverly was going to bring, but it was always the intent of the mayor's office to do the geotechnical of the forensic center to include at some point in time in the future a EMS facility. Commissioner Beverly just wanted to make sure that that was part of the overall initial design, not the structural design, but the geotechnical design. So we're still in excellent shape. We're not, if you want to separate them, you can, but it's not necessary because quite honestly, it is 6 one, half a dozen at another. We can continue with the forensic center. We can have the geotechnical and site work done for an EMS facility. When this body determines they're ready to locate one out there, it'll already be done. Does that make sense? Well, I guess the bottom line is we can do it now or we can do it later, but the cost won't change because we're still going to do the site work and the geotechnical for the remaining land that we have out there, so that when we put any facility, whether it's an EMS or a public safety building, it's already done. That part is already done. So we're going to do all of that right now, so we don't have to do it again.
And it was like that from the beginning, right?
Well, that I do not know. I can't answer that. To the extent that we can use that, all the geotechnicals be done, we certainly will. We won't be doing our work again unless the state requires us to, but I'm not sure what the requirements are for this forensic center, so we've included that, although it may not be necessary. You're right.
I may have had a dream or a nightmare, but I thought at one point I heard discussion that we're going to do the forensic center, but this is what's coming in the future, like EMS station or something. Yeah. So that was going to be done all along. So we're amending a motion to do what we were going to do anyway. Is that pretty simple?
Kind of, sort of.
All right, thank you. Now I'm good.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, now after the mayor explained about the suggestion that Commissioner Brady Beverly, mentioned. Now I understand. Before I thought you dropped the forensic, just go back to the EMS. So hopefully, we can move on for the forensics and also the Commissioner Beverly proposed.
Yes, sir. You have something?
No, sir. Am I dismissed?
You're dismissed. All right, we're ready for the motion as amended coming before you. So now I'll ask the secretary to call the roll.
Commissioner Beverly,
Yes.
Commissioner James,
No.
Commissioner McMurray,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Based on the mayor's comments, yes.
Commissioner Oliver,
Aye.
Chairman Reed.
Yes,
Motion passes.
motion passes. We'll move now to item 4, emergency services, public safety report, and radio system report. Chris Clark, our director. Before you give your report, I want to say thank you to Commissioner McAdoo, who's come in tonight, and he was going to have a statement to make in this. I want to say thank you to Denise Martin, who's the director of all of this, and has done real well with our department getting us this far in all of this. Sheriff's Department has planned real well. They were going to be a part of this too, so thank you all for being here as we move that forward, and I think it's going to mean a whole lot to this county.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. Chris Clark, Public Safety Director. Hopefully you have been provided July 18th to August 18th Public Safety Report. Some of the key items is that we are at the starting of the school. Things seem to be going well. We've had many discussions on school safety and even exercises with our local law enforcement concerning school starting, and it is going really well. And to be honest with you, we've had more conversations lately in the last, I guess year with our schools than we have in the past, and we enjoyed that partnership. Also, Long-Term Recovery Committee. We have established a volunteer long-term recovery committee that's outside the Rutherford County government for aid for disaster victims when something bad happens. So this long-term recovery means that once our operation's over, these volunteer groups come in and assist individuals for the long term. That's my report, and I entertain any questions, Chairman.
Any questions for the director?
Motion to approve.
Motion approved. Commissioner Beverly.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Sereno. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Report is approved. I believe you have some other things.
I do. Recently, I presented to the Property Management Committee last week of a lease from Middle Tennessee Electric of a tower located at 2419 Rock Springs Road. This lease has been since 2013, and we would like to continue another 10-year contract with Middle Tennessee Electric and lease that piece of tower there. Initially, I believe it was $2,500. It goes up every year for 5%. We're approximately, this year we paid $3,300 for that lease. We'd like to continue that and approve the lease.
Commissioners?
Question, was that lease not a part of the budget that was just presented? It was.
It's in our this year's budget.
The one we just approved in June, right?
Correct.
Right.
And so now this is what, just cursory, just to say yay?
You're
You are
approving.
renewing a lease.
The lease is what you're approving. Have a motion to approve? Motion approved, Commissioner
Second.
Oliver.
Second.
Commissioner Sereno. Call the roll.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner McMurray,
Yes.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner Beverly,
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver,
Aye.
Chairman Reed.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Have a grant or whatever, or?
I have an interlocal agreement between Rutherford County and the city of Eagleville. This is a medical first responder medical memorandum of agreement that has gone through our attorneys and accepted by the city of Eagleville. Hopefully, we will they'll be able to provide medical first responder under this agreement in the city of Eagleville.
Move to approve.
Motion approved, Commissioner Radler. Second, Commissioner Oliver. Questions?
I have a question under item 6, line B, or under the medical response section. Rutherford County will operate 1 ambulance and, to the extent resources allow, 1 reserve ambulance within the service area. Can you define what the reserve ambulance would be, clarify what that would mean, and clarify what service area would entail?
Yes, sir. So traditionally, we have had a on-duty ambulance, and then we have a reserve located at that location. That's been in the event that the primary ambulance needs to be replaced, it can be replaced immediately. Also, the special events that occur at Eagleville High School and other events throughout there, our off-duty personnel will just come in and grab the reserve truck and be able to cover those special events as well. And so they want to reinforce that that the necessity of that reserve ambulance that is located out there currently. And then the service area, we run not necessarily in zones anymore. We run off of what's called AVL or GPSs. And so the jurisdictional area is for the most part the city of Eagleville and the surrounding areas of Eagleville. So a lot of times our ambulances are just not restricted to the city limits of Eagleville. So since here recently we had a tornado, Eagleville Fire Department responded to those areas that was outside of the city of Eagleville, went to those areas. So in proximity of the city limits of Eagleville.
Would it be reasonably safe to assume that if Eagleville's ambulance, the one they have out there, is en route into town, say the hospital or something, that the next closest would be the New Rockville position? Is there a way we can get that to be, as their dispatch being out, that one is, or that, as your wording says, as to the extent resources allow, will be immediately dispatched to go stage there? Because I'm wondering what the distance, time-wise specifically, say to the edge of the county line on the other side of Eagleville.
You are correct, and that's the reason why we're trying to get first responders to be in those areas so that they can, that's the purpose of the first responder, medical first responders. And having ambulances coming that way, that allows our patients to have medical attention as the ambulances are approaching. You know, if we had 5 ambulances in the city of the city of Eagleville, there really wouldn't be a need for a first responder program. So these guys are really good at providing that medical attention prior to our ambulances getting there, whether they're coming from the new station or whether they're sitting there in the city of Eagleville.
I agree. I personally would like to see some kind of, it's more of just a logistics maneuvering of as one's coming out, one's going in, just to keep that readiness reserved, because the time on the front end, from what I've gathered, is the most valuable time to have. So just the time, the potential need to get out there. But I'm also arguing, because supplies and equipment and personnel are limited, is I definitely respect those 2 words or 3 words to the extent resources allow. But I'd
We
like
do
to see
that
some kind of understanding, just to give that whole section that they're kind of their own island, right? That whole peace of mind that 20 minutes potential elapsed time is already worked into their favor for the what if possibility.
Currently, we rotate ambulances in and out of every city and county. We rotate these ambulances all the way around Rutherford County as it starts to empty, as they do in Smyrna. As you heard Commissioner Beverly say, that we sent 2 ambulances up to the north end because they were all tied up. We kind of do that all across the county. So if Eagleville starts getting tied up, we start rotating ambulances and other resources to those areas. Keep in mind also that if Eagleville, City of Eagleville Fire Department is on one medical call, we have Station 56, which is first responders on those fire trucks as well. They are not without emergency medical service.
Commissioner, I can tell you that's been done for, I know, for at least the last 4 or 5 years. Whenever Eagleville ambulance was coming back into Murfreesboro, you would see one sitting at the Rockville Middle School at night. I've gone by there a lot of nights, see an ambulance sitting in that pull-in. I've seen them at sitting there in the drive of Subway at the middle of the night, and they're like that all over the county. You'll see an ambulance sometimes sitting in a parking lot here in town. They've been doing that for years. They've been alternating where they are and whatever, just to be available when they can. And I think our Director Gaither can answer those questions for you better than anyone.
Director Clark, do we have an interlocal agreement with anybody else? Like Smyrna?
All of them.
And this is the same language, the same agreement we approve every year?
That is correct.
All right, thank you.
Except for that one ambulance, Murfreesboro had 5.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Double checking.
Mr. Chairman, motion to approve.
Motion approved. Commissioner Beverly. Second. Commissioner Oliver. Call the roll.
Commissioner Beverly?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner McMurray?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver?
Aye.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Motion passes.
The next on the agenda is a hazardous material emergency preparedness grant. And this grant, we are requesting something a little bit different this year. Where we have always purchased training equipment such as that, we would like to send 2 from each jurisdiction that has hazmat teams: Smyrna, Laverne, Murfreesboro, and Rutherford County. 2 individuals from each department to a hazardous material response team international conference that would be located in Baltimore on June the 5th to June the 9th of 2024. This is one of the items that this grant approves. It's actually listed for this, and we invest in our personnel. The total of the grant is $21,600. Our portion, local portion, is $4,320, and 80% will come from the federal grant, which is $17,280. Entertain any questions.
Questions or a motion?
Question. And so the local matching funds, where will they come from? You already have that budgeted, or where does that come from?
No, we have not have that. We do not have that budget.
So where would that come from?
Usually, once we do this, and I can try to find it in our budget, but we're tight. I will tell you this year, usually that would come from unassigned fund balance.
So this would come from unassigned fund balance.
And that's-
Okay. I guess I just keep going back to the fact that we just did a budget in June. Did we not know that this was going to be happening and could not have included this in the budget we just did in June?
No, ma'am. We get these grants, and we're not sure if we get them this year or not. It's according to the state and federal government. And back to your question, I think that'd be a Michael Smith question about where that $4,300, I may have misspoke on that. So I think that would be a question for him to answer.
Okay, thank you. Is he gone? He's hiding.
Anyone else?
And you knew Commissioner Oliver was going to ask some questions.
Your question where it would come from? I will have the answer for you if I run to my office when I come back up here in a little bit, or by the end of the night. Chris is correct. If we did not budget for it, it would come from unassigned fund balance. However, there is a chance I did budget for that, or estimated, but I cannot tell you for sure until I were to go back to my office and pull something and look.
So if it came either way, we would have money for it. You're saying either it will come from unassigned fund balance or it has been budgeted, but you're just not sure.
That's correct. And today our unassigned fund balance is a little over $71 million. So I do think we'll probably be able to afford the $4,000.
Any other questions?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, Commissioner Rather.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Sereno, please call the roll.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner McMurray,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver,
Aye.
Commissioner Beverly,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes,
Motion passes.
passes.
Thank you. One more. We have a budget amendment to appropriate money for a previous year's Motorola maintenance agreement. This was not anticipated to be billed. This budget amendment is of $454,497 for Motorola maintenance. This amendment, we've been battling for about a year and a half. The maintenance was approved in 2019 by the County Commission for maintenance to our radio system. This maintenance began 1 year after we realized that in the contract was final system sign-off. However, Motorola disagrees with that, and we have been battling that with our attorneys, the mayor's office, 2 terms of mayors, and our attorneys. Our maintenance agreement allows our system to be maintained with software, servers, things like that, called patches, if you're familiar with software, and upgrades. After 1 year has expired, which we had someone an ex-employee to sign an agreement saying that process started. With that being said, that clock started ticking. I received a bill in June of last year of this amount of money. I immediately took it to Mayor Ketron. Then the second day of office of Mayor Joe Carr, introduced this issue with him as well. After many meetings with Motorola, letters, meetings with attorneys, to keep our system up and operating and maintained to the fullest, we must have this maintenance. I will say that I'm not very pleased with Motorola of how this happened, and that I will tell you that we watch every nick and cranny that comes through that office, and this is one that, I'll just be honest with you, I'm not a fan with. But if we don't, we're not going to have maintenance for our system. And we're asking for that budget amendment.
Mr. Chairman, is it internal, or what of the fund is it coming from? Or is it unassigned
Fund balance.
But to clean up something that's been about 4 years in the making?
So we're on this maintenance agreement. We've got 9 more years on it. Started prematurely, I felt like. I think that the mayor's office felt like it started prematurely as well. And so that, however, the CEOs of Motorola disagree. And like I said, we've been battling this for about 1.5 years. I apologize to Mayor Carr. For the second day of his office, I introduced him this problem. He's been working with us throughout, along with Nick Christensen, Michael Smith, and a lot of other ones.
Mayor Carr.
Come on up here, Michael. So this is a complicated mess. The things that Director Clark told you are true. And so we tried to, along with Nick Christensen leading the way, our county attorney, we tried to negotiate a place where there was some mutual satisfaction. There were some serious legal disagreements about the contract as opposed to when the maintenance would start. With regard to when the beneficial use was signed by Peter Rogers. To be candid, he did not have the authority to make to sign that beneficial sign-off, but he did. Motorola insists that he had that authority because his name appears on that beneficial use document. The addendum to the contract, which is the maintenance agreement, which Mr. Clark is referring to, contradicts that. It says that the maintenance doesn't begin until a sign-off of the system. The system hasn't been signed off yet because they haven't completed a tower out Greenland Drive at Halls Hill Pike, which Rutherford County and Murfreesboro are going to share. We offered to try to go to mediation to deal with this issue because this is a $18 million radio system. Is that right, Chris? And our first responders, along with Murfreesboro, depend on this, which means lives are at stake. It's that important. And so I had the unenviable position to make a very difficult decision. Do I pursue what I thought was a legal matter where the county was absolutely in the right with a very large company that had us over a barrel? And they did. And so based on the conversations with Eric Hennessy and Nick Christensen, we agreed that the lives that may be at stake as a result of Motorola not being an equitable partner for the county in this endeavor, we would just ask for the county commission for a budget amendment to pay the maintenance. And so it's not a decision that I made lightly, but I did in consultation with our attorneys and the first responders, and this is unfortunately where we're at. And I'll be glad to take any questions.
What's the amount again?
$454,497.
And this is for the 8-9 years you said that's left?
So there was, when this addendum was originally signed, it was a 10-year maintenance agreement. The first year was free and included, and it was 9 equal payments of $454,497. Now, we did not extend those payments, right? So the disagreement with us and Motorola, and I don't want to speak for the mayor's office, but the disagreement was when that maintenance period started. That's correct. So that's what our contractual issue with Motorola structured around, was not the fact that we weren't going to have to pay 9 payments of a little over $450,000. It was when those payments started. And so when we did the budget this year, the mayor's office, EMA, and my office, based on all the work that was left to be done on the system, thought that that maintenance agreement should start this year, not last year. And then we come to find out somebody had signed a document that we didn't know about that triggered that maintenance agreement to start a year sooner than we thought. So it was known that we were going to pay 9 equal payments of $454,000. They just started a year earlier than what we thought. And I'll add, I think we did have a very strong case, but sometimes it's at what cost, because we were still going to pay the 9 payments regardless of whether they were before or after. Does that help?
Yes. Is there any liability on the person who signed this agreement?
He no longer works for the county, and I'm not an attorney, but I will say we did speak with Eric and the county attorney and explored all legal options. I feel comfortable saying that, and I think it was the consensus that we were trying to take the one that impacted the county, the least amount of hurt on the county, if that.
I do want to say, this is something I wanted to fight because I felt like the county was in the right, but it wasn't worth the risk of lives. And I think Motorola knew that. So here we are.
Mr. Chairman, I share in their frustrations and make a motion to approve, though.
Motion to approve. Have a second. Call the roll.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner McMurray,
Yes.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver,
Aye.
Commissioner Beverly,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Emergency medical service report. Director Brian Gaither. Good evening, sir.
I'll try to be much quicker than the previous 2 discussions, I promise.
Please.
We did a total of 3,388 calls, response time of 7.2 or 7 minutes and 12 seconds. We had 149 deaths, 20 of them went for autopsies at a cost of $39,200. We collected $1,020,040. Some in-service training and community relations events, and the convalescent division did 486 calls, collected $129,348. And the next few pages are some letters that we received throughout the month, and that's my report.
Commissioners, you've seen the report. Questions? Or yes, sir.
Yeah, this is a very nice letter from the citizen.
Yes, sir.
Mr. James?
Brian, I wanted to mention that I ran into an employee of yours, or ex-employee, I should say, and I wanted to, for the county, I'd like to take a second and pay respects for his body of work and his service under in your department. Paul Tucker was a critical care paramedic, served from 2000 until August of this year, and kind of had a unusually abrupt and ready to go retirement. And I want to make sure that the county thanked him for his time and I appreciate him under your leadership there. That we say thank you for Mr. Tucker's time and service to this county, and you know, it's unusual retirement send-off on this scenario here.
It was kind of I mean, he was planning, but I think he was planning for later in the fall of this year, and it came on a little quicker than he thought it would, so.
But I wanted to make sure I mentioned that along with these letters here of your service well done, and move to approve the report.
Motion to approve. Have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? It is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Fire and rescue. Good evening, Chief Larry Farley.
Mr. Chairman, committee, discussion come up about running medical calls. I wanted to let everybody know that we also run medical calls. We are an ALS service, and what that means, we provide advanced life support. I've got paramedics and EMTs on our trucks. We provide the same level of care as EMS, we just don't transport. Speaking of that, since Eagleville has requested their amendment tonight, I'd like to read y'all an email I received today. And with Chief Armstrong and the city manager back here, this seems appropriate. Dear Chief Farley, I'm writing you to share a wonderful experience I had with our Eagleville firefighters. On August 9th, my husband and I welcomed a sweet baby boy into the world with a home birth here at my home in Eagleville. Upon delivery, he was not responsive, and our midwife had started CPR. I cannot express how crucial the response time of the Eagleville Fire Department was for our sweet baby boy that night. The men that arrived first on the scene were nothing short of heroes. From the time we made the 911 call to they were in our bedroom floor working on our boy was only a handful of minutes. These were minutes we didn't have to spare. I am so thankful for Noah Barrett and Ethan Springer as they were the men that arrived first and took over CPR. Without their level heads, I'm not sure our boy would be here today. I can only imagine the thoughts and emotions that they faced with responding to such a heart-wrenching call, but they remained calm and took control of the situation, never leaving me questioning the care of my son's life in their hands. I also wanted to thank you for your continued support of Eagleville Fire Department. Had we had to wait for a nearby unit to dispatch, I do not think I would be writing you this email today. If you could share this email with anyone that has anything to do with the Eagleville or was part of that call that night, I would greatly appreciate it. I am truly in awe of how amazing the response was and want to recognize the recognition to go to those who earned it. Thank you again, Tiffany and Casey White. And of course, they provided a beautiful picture of their baby boy. And so that is how important our first responders are. And I want kudos out to Eagleville Fire Department for that. But that's the difference that first responders make, especially being able to provide medical care. For the month of July, we had 9 structure fires, 296 medical calls. We had 53 MVAs, and for a total call volume of 535 calls. Year to date for the county fire department, we've actually responded to 53 structure fires, 2,103 medical calls, 463 MVAs, and for a total call volume of 4,171 calls. Countywide, including the volunteer response, we've had 65 structure fires, 96 brush fires, 55 illegal burns, and 59 vehicle fires. We've had 704 MVAs, 19 of those had extrication involved. And so we had a total of 5,074 calls. The next sheet is showing what we address or what we send to the county codes department. The structures that were damaged by fire. And the next sheet is the fire investigation report. And then we had 11 alarm installations last month. And the last sheet is our unauthorized illegal burning report. And that concludes my report.
Commissioners?
Question, Chief. On your investigation report, and you have case closed but no disposition, does that mean that none was found? So then it was just deemed closed?
It says what now?
Case closed but no disposition.
Yeah, it means nothing was found.
Chairman, if I may. Chief, can we add another part of the report to this now as we're getting these new facilities that are coming online like we just had with Rockville? I'd like to see kind of the amount of call volume coming out of the individual facilities, to kind of break down on that, see where they're, how many times they're being used, you know, get the value of our asset in real time, how many times and how many.
Well, I'll see if ESO will allow me to break it down like that. I will try to do that.
And then I had one follow-up question concerning, also concerning the volunteers. I was getting words that some of them might not have been currently gotten their pay yet from the first quarter. What's the status?
I have released Las Casas' pay, Christiana, and Ambles, and I had met with Las Casas a week ago, and they said they hadn't received their check. I contacted Mark Tucker with finance, and he said at that point they had not released any of their nonprofit funds, but they were in the process of about the process of doing so. So they did tell me that, and I checked with Mark, so they should be going out very soon.
I move to approve the report.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Mr. Chairman, one thing. I understand about a week ago there was a structure fire and 2 of your firemen were treated.
We had a structure fire, I believe it was last Saturday night out on Big Springs Road. It was on a road. We had confirmation there was somebody inside. Unfortunately, we were unable to get to him before he passed. And we had 2 guys that one fell through a porch, and the other guy something collapsed on him. But it was minor injuries. They were checked out and they were fine.
We appreciate what they did, and we're sad at the loss of life. But we appreciate that they were there and all the work that they did, and glad to know that they weren't seriously injured.
Well, anytime that we have confirmation there's somebody in there, they do everything they can to make sure they can try to get to them. But when we got there, the fire was pretty much heavily involved, and they were unable to get to him.
Before you step down, yesterday we had the opening of the new Rockville Public Health and Safety Building. We had a great turnout from the community, from other officials within the county, and it was just something to behold, to see. That was our first building to begin, to start with. Something we did yesterday, we had sitting in front of the podium was a framed picture of our last volunteer group that was in Rockville. They were on the engine, had their picture made. I guess it went all the way back to 2010, somewhere at that time. But it was that group that had finished out as volunteers there at the station when they closed down. Well, we had the picture framed. We placed it in front of the podium, and we dedicated yesterday to the beginning of Station 56 at Rockville. And we are going to place that picture within that new station out there, so every time those firemen come in, they see those that were there before them. And I happened to mention while I was up there that I was using the words of our mayor, that we all are here due to the fact of standing on the shoulders of others before us. And we just thought that was quite important, that we recognize the fact of those volunteers to come on before us, because I know a lot of those individuals, and I was there when a lot of them were there. And we are going to do that in all these other stations where we go out here, where you can find what these things we have. And Chief, the reason I'm keeping you up here is that Commissioner James was out there yesterday, and he had a good idea, I think that he might want to pass on to you tonight. And Commissioner, do you want to present that tonight?
Well, whenever the structure is built in the county, you have a little plaque where the commissioners who approved the funds for the building get their names put on it. And I was thinking, after seeing our chairman with the picture of the final group there, that it might be a good idea on all these structures to put a plaque, a permanent placed plaque, showing the years of service of the volunteers that stood there before us with all the previous chiefs listed. Something to pay homage that at that point, anybody coming and going in that building for years to come will be able to look back and remember who got us to the point that we're at now. Just a simple gesture of thanks and gratitude. And if you find that acceptable, I'd like to make a motion to push that forward.
So you're saying put a plaque in each new station of all the previous fire chiefs?
Just of the, like the 40 years from this volunteer department, all the fire chiefs that existed there, up until it became part of Rutherford County's
Okay,
responsibility.
I have no objection to that.
And if viable, if I can get a second, I'd like to make a motion on that one, on that.
Okay, we have that as a motion. Did I get a second? Okay, I was getting other information up here. I have a one-track mind, so I have to go that direction. So we have a motion to approve and a second. Do you have a cost or anything that we have on that?
No, I'm afraid we'll probably have to send that to budget to pursue.
Well, I would assume, what do you want it made out of?
The only way I've got it envisioned, unless anybody would like to do it, is the same kind of metal plaques that we have from our, that the commissioners' names are listed on.
Yeah, I'll try to look in that and get a cost for that.
Just bring us back a cost of what that would be. All right, we have the motion. Call the roll.
Mr. Beverly?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. McMurray?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver?
Aye.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Motion passes.
We plan on moving into the Kidder building probably September 4th, which will be next Monday. So hopefully we've already been manning the old Kidder Fire Hall, but we'll be moving to the new station next week, hopefully. So that'll be 2 of them we have open. And there will be a grand opening for that to be announced.
Okay, before you, this bit of heroism that happened out in Eagleville, I think that deserves a standing ovation from this group here for what happened out there. And I think that's something we should recognize.
Mr. Chairman, real quick, in regards to the public health and safety buildings, I noticed, I've read back through some minutes from the Public Building Authority on August the 3rd, and I'm not sure who I should talk to about it. This is in regards to the Dell Web that's coming up. I noticed that they stated that they want to reduce it from a $7 million building to a $5 million building and to remove about 4,000 square feet. Which includes removing a tornado shelter and FEMA doors. Is there a reason why they're doing that for that particular building instead of all the other 5 buildings?
From my understanding, all the first 5 stations were funded with ARPA money, and the last one will be county funded. So the mayor was looking at that, maybe trying to cut down some costs on that building because it will be funded by the county. The other 2 was with federal money, from my understanding. Of course, the money would have covered all of them, but with inflation, the cost of those buildings have gone up as they built them. So that's my understanding of what the mayor explained to me.
Gotcha, because that was kind of what our concern was months ago, that something like this would happen. This is one of the fastest growing areas in the county, and now we're pretty much reducing, but I'll talk to the mayor about that. So, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for bringing it up, Commissioner. Thank you, sir. Sheriff's Office report. Sheriff Mike Fitzhugh. And I believe we have Steve Spence is going to do that.
Thanks.
Good evening. This afternoon's population for the inmates is 740. We had partnered with Tennessee Highway Patrol on 2 operations on the interstate this year. The first one, July 26, between 2:30 and 8:30 p.m. on I-24, we had 370 actions with the public. The other operation was August the 16th from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. on I-24, and we conducted 426 actions with the public on that operation. That's in my report.
Questions for the chief?
So this is not in your report. In regards to body cameras,
Yes, sir.
When will you all, I guess, start wearing those?
We went live with those in patrol July 17th.
July 17th?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So is it just for patrol only?
Yes, sir, and we're going to branch out as we go through with funding.
Okay.
Other questions or a motion?
Move to approve.
Move to approve. Commissioner James. Second.
Who did our second?
That was over here, Commissioner McMurray. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Approved.
We have an amendment for the drug fund. Is to move money from the restricted for public safety to place money into the data processing equipment and motor vehicle funds. Request and take $67,000 from the restricted public safety line item and placing $40,000 in the data processing equipment and $27,000 into the motor vehicle line item.
Questions on the amendment?
Motion to approve.
Approve.
Second.
Second. Other questions? Call the roll.
I did have a question. My apologies. I didn't turn it on quick enough. Where did you say the funds would come from? Because I'm just kind of lost on this.
Restricted for public safety. That's our drug fund.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner McMurray,
Yes.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner Beverly,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver,
Aye.
Chairman Reed.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next amendment, this budget amendment allocates reserve rollover funds of $238,933 awarded to the Rutherford County for the Mental Health Patient Transport Grant for financial year 24. It's a rollover from last year's grant rolled over to the new budget year. It'd be $238,933.
Heard the request. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve. Commissioner Rather.
Second.
Second. Commissioner Sereno. Please call the roll.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner Beverly,
Yes.
Commissioner McMurray,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver,
Aye.
Chairman Reed.
Yes.
Motion passes.
This amendment allocates funds awarded to Rutherford County for the Violent Crime Intervention Funds. This is a no-match formula-based grant that ends June 30th of 2025. The award funds 2 new positions, a community outreach coordinator and a community outreach co-responder. In addition, the funds will be used to purchase office furniture for the new employees, outreach materials, literature for the community events, mobile projector and screen, cell phone service fees, training, certification, and a digital message board to be installed at the sheriff's office. The total funds, $211,855, $111,400 would be going to the clerical personnel line item for salary. $6,906 will go into Social Security. $12,376 will go into pension. $12,080 will go into employee and dependent insurance. $223 for disability insurance. $1,615 employer medical care. $1,560 will go into communications. $4,880 will go into training, travel, and conferences. $1,500 will go into office supplies. $7,650 would be other supplies and materials. $49,085 will go into data processing equipment. $2,580 will go into furniture and equipment.
All no match.
No match.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved. Commissioner Beverly.
Second.
Second. Commissioner McMurray, please call the roll.
May I ask a question? Can you talk about the roles and responsibilities of these two individuals?
Yes, ma'am. This is designed to make connections with service in a more direct way to divert people into crisis to necessary locations and to help our officers de-escalate subjects that are in crisis.
Chief, this looks like the grant ends in next year, or the 25.
Yes, sir.
And then we're on the hook for, lack of better phrasing, for the personnel at that point, their salaries.
Yes, we've got to decide if we're going to keep them, but put it in our budget, or do away with the program. But hopefully we can reapply for another grant to extend it.
I believe I've already asked for the roll to be called.
Commissioner Oliver?
Aye.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Commissioner McMurray?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Beverly?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Motion passes.
We are requesting to apply for the State of Tennessee statewide School Resource Officers Grant. This is a no-match grant for 1 year. The grant provides $74,000 per school. We're applying for $3,750,000.
Questions?
Before it's asked, is this a grant we can apply for next year?
If it's available. Right now, it's just for this budget year.
Question. Is this the one from the governor's office? Is this was related to?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Move to approve.
Move to approve with Commissioner James.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Sereno, call the roll.
Commissioner Beverly?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner McMurray?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver?
Aye.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Chief Spence.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, few quick things. I noticed at the last steering committee meeting, I think Ms. Sonia Stevens talked about some departments, I guess with the turnover or struggling to hire. Are we, how's that going? Do we have like recruitment videos or recruiting and retaining individuals? Or is it due to the salaries or just what?
Yes, sir. We've stepped up our recruiting programs. If you can remember, we got approved for a recruitment sergeant in this year's budget. We've got them in place, and they're doing some better recruitment and extending it out to the public.
Okay, thank you. And then lastly, I saw an article that you're all still doing the coffee with the community with Sheriff Fitzhugh and all?
The last one we done was been a few months ago. There was no turnout. We had more of our officers there than we did public. We've put a hold on it for right now.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, it was good. It was good coffee.
It's Sheriff Fitzhugh, I heard, made it, so that's probably why they're not coming out.
Are we through, Chief?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, pause. Director Michael Gregory.
Yes, sir. I'll be brief. 5:30 will come quick in the morning to be back at the shelter. We had 411 animals come into the shelter during the month of July. We had a 6.9% euthanasia rate. Our live release for our dogs was 85.4%. Cats were 95.2%. And when wildlife and others are included, it was 90.1%. Our officers completed out 1,500 calls for the month, traveling 9,864 miles. That's the only part of the report for the statistics because we start that over fiscal year. Our rabies exposure and bite report goes by calendar year. You can see that for the month of July, we had 47 bites. 3 of those were sent for testing, none came back positive. And we had 6 other exposures, none of those were sent for testing. And the last page of the report is the graph that I give you showing the live release versus our euthanasia rate. That's my report, sir.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a second. Those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Report is approved.
Sir.
OSHA report.
Good evening, Commissioners. For the OSHA report, month of July, you had 6 incidences. For the year to date, 127. Your OSHA log summary, your total recordables is 85. Lost day claims, 14. Restricted day claims, 53. Other recordables, 18. Next page, on the job injury claims. For the 2023, you see there's 127, 22, 95. 2021 is 93. For the on-the-job injury incurred dollars, you see 444, 2022 340, 2021 378. And then for the cause of injuries, Board of Ed had 3, County General had 3, Sheriff's Office was the 3 in the County General. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Questions?
Question, please. Wasn't it at your office where Ms. Thompson, I believe now, is a certified OSHA trainer?
Yes.
Was she involved in, or I guess, how is that working out? And was she a part of like onboarding new staff and things of that nature with the teachers and things of that nature? Just how is that working out as far as her being a certified OSHA trainer?
Yes, she started with us like 3 years ago, and then she got certified to be able to teach. Her certification's not more than, I think, 60 days old. But the one thing we've had in our office, we have a new third-party administrator that took over in July. So all of our concentration has been in the transition from the third-party administrator at the moment for the last 2 months, making sure that there was no injured employee that got lost in the transition. What you'll have is approval for an MRI, some type of a treatment if you have an employee. And you don't want, when you change from one TPA, an adjuster over to another one, you don't want your employees lost in that shuffle. So the main focus for the last probably 45 days in the office is making sure that any accident, property damage accident that's occurred, any OJI injury that's occurred, especially those that occurred in the latter part of June, that would transfer over to the new adjusters. We wanted to make sure that those things were taken care of first. But what I will mention, if you got just a second, I did pull some numbers from 2019 just to kind of give a comparison pre-COVID times. And in 2019 compared to 2023, 2019 there was 143 injuries at the year to date, and where there's 127 for 2022. And then when you looked at your incurred dollars for 2019-20 year, you had $670,000 compared to $629,000 incurred dollars. So when you go back to pre-COVID times, our numbers are running a little bit under what they were before. And then the last thing I would say is compared to the state, we have to be careful comparing ourselves to to each year. I mean, it is a good comparison, but our incident rate is well below what the state incident rate is. So it is something I've talked to Commissioner Phillips about and trying to monitor that. We also met about trying to monitor that with the hours worked. And a lot of the incident rate is the number of hours worked divided by your 200,000 hours, and then that gives you kind of an incident rate. So we're trying to quantify that in talking to Commissioner Phillips to try to come up with not only comparing to ourselves how well we've done, but also comparing ourselves to the state. So I was hoping, we met about it, I was hoping to have that this month, but because of concentrating, make sure that our employees were taken care of, and anyone that's had any type of property damage caused by the county, like a highway department mower hitting a mailbox or something like that, that we got those things taken care of through the TPA. I just didn't get it put together this month, but we are concentrating on it and working on it and trying to get an estimated number of hours worked. That's kind of the hard part from the finance office.
Other questions? Any motions?
Move to approve the report.
Motion to approve. Second, Commissioner James. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Report is approved.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, sir. Recovery Court. Good evening. Please identify yourself.
Good evening. I'm Janet Mattingly, Clinical Director with the Recovery Courts, in place of Director Ricks for this evening. Our report, our total numbers for our program, we have 176 clients programming. Total applications in process, 115. We have 43 that have been assessed and are waiting for their court date to enter their program. We had 1 termination during the month of July and 12 graduations. Breaking that down into each court program, drug court is currently programming 50 participants with 38 applications in process. 20 of those, or 20, in addition, 20 are assessed and waiting for their court date to come into the program. 1 termination and 0 graduations in July. Mental health court is currently programming 46 participants, applications in process 35, applications assessed and waiting for their court date are 13, 0 terminations and 0 graduates during July. Our DUI court, which our evening program is at capacity with 40 participants. We have 68 total in both the evening and day program. Applications in process are 36. We have 8 that have been assessed and are waiting for their court date, 0 terminations with 2 graduations. And last but not least, our Veterans Treatment Program, currently programming 12 participants with 9 applications in process, 2 applications assessed, and those individuals are waiting their court date, no terminations and no graduations. Questions?
Questions? Questions or a motion?
Move to approve the
Move to
report.
approve.
Second.
Second, Commissioner McMurray. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Report is approved. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Mr. Chairman, real quick, I just want to say, I think on last Thursday, last Thursday, I attended the re-entry simulation program at Langrager Park.
Yes.
That was a really good event. I think next time everyone should probably attend it, because you'll see how hard it is once you get out of jail or in some type of recovery without the proper identification and income, things like that. It's really hard to get back into society. So the resources that's needed for those type of programs is warranted. And then also, I want to mention that I think Miss Lisa Kay had sent us an email regarding Overdose Awareness Day. It's this Thursday at 9 a.m.
Yes.
There's going to be a program. at the day
Reporting Center.
reporting center. So I just
Yes.
wanted to throw that out there as well, that you all are partnering with other agencies on that. So.
Yes, we do. Thank you so much. And that day, we'll have a walk, and there'll be other community agencies there. Our participants will be there. There'll be a balloon launch to memorialize those who have passed this last year due to an overdose. So we would love to see everyone there. And the reentry simulation is so insightful and educating. I got to participate in my first one as well Thursday night, and I just highly recommend it. So we do those, I think, twice a year. So thank you.
Thank you. I believe we have our Chief of Staff, Eric Hennessy, has something to bring forward at this time.
Commissioners, we were last at the property management meeting last week and presented at that meeting the plan for architectural design for the expansion of the recovery court facility. It has been a priority of the mayor's office since we took office and before, I believe, to try to get as many folks into this program as possible. And we have, through the efforts of Lachelle Ricks, and tried to remove any and all of the bottlenecks that were in the system to make it as efficient as possible to get individuals into the program. And we're still just finding that we're limited by the amount of space that we have at that building. Before anyone asks, and I said this exactly the same way at property management, we are not asking for personnel. We believe that expanding the footprint of the building will help us in being able to get more people into the program with the current personnel that we have. Or we believe that there would be grants available out there for us to request for individuals to come and work in the program once we had the facility established. I've brought some help with me tonight because, one, I don't know much about construction, and so I've got Adam Dodd there, if the commission would allow him to come up and speak a moment about the specifics of what we're trying to do. As I understand it, the majority, the project is to build about a 1,600 square foot multi-use facility that could be used as one big room, or with the accordion walls could be cut into 3 rooms to make classroom space. In doing that, we could then take one of the classrooms that is there and use that to create new offices within the original footprint of the building. And as late as Friday, in a conversation I had with Lachelle Ricks, she said she believed without even adding personnel, just having this new facility, she could probably get about 75 more people into the program. So if everyone is okay with that, I'd like to ask Adam to come up and give you a little bit more specifics about the cost. That you'll see on your SharePoint a sheet from Bart Klein Sweeney and Associates. And at the bottom, there's an anticipated construction cost of $1.4 million. We don't think it's going to be $1.4 million, and we're not asking for that at this point in time anyways. The only thing that we are asking for is $84,894.75 to hire Mr. Klein to do the architectural engineering work. Another reason that we have Adam here is because when we had originally asked Bart Klein for a net cost estimate, he gave us one price. And we went back and we looked at the scope of the work that was included in that contract, and we met with Adam, and we said, Adam, is there any of this that you think you or your department or could get done without using the architect to do it, to try to help save the county some money? And Adam was the first one to step right up and say, yes, absolutely. For the most part, the architect will be handling the expansion, the roof, and then large systems underneath the building. And then Adam's department would be handling the retrofitting of the one meeting space that we have currently into offices and things of that nature. So if Adam would please explain a little bit better than I can what the construction would actually be.
Commissioners, basically, I'll just kind of reiterate what Eric has said. We're looking for approximately 1,600 square foot of an expandable space that can be used as a multi-purpose space. I think we're trying to accomplish 3 classrooms, and we want this space to be able to also be used for graduations. As far as the interior of the building, when the county bought this building, it's my understanding that it had sat vacant for a while, so it needed some work. It still needs some work. We've had several issues within the building over the past couple years. So by adding this additional footage onto the building, we can take this time to go ahead and address some of the other issues that they're having with regarding the office space. I believe she's looking to add approximately 6 to 8 offices. The floor, it needs some attention. We're looking to upgrade the flooring. We're looking to upgrade the HVAC system. We're having some humidity control issues in that building, some moisture issues. We're looking for an encapsulation under the crawl space. We're looking to add some more return so that we have a better air quality control in that building, eliminate some of the humidity issues that we're having. That's basically all we're looking to do. We feel like that we can oversee the floor replacement. We do anticipate that there's probably some subfloor damage that will need to be replaced. We're looking at probably some decking, possibly some rafters that might have to be replaced when we look at doing a full roof replacement, a full HVAC replacement, and that's going to include the ductwork and adding some more returns throughout the building, and upgrade the flooring system, remodel some of the space that currently exists within the building, so that and that's one of the ways that we're looking to hopefully save some money during this project is to utilize the space that she currently has, Ms. Ricks currently has now, and just focus the architect's energy onto the expansion.
I will say we've already identified one grant that we are in the process of requesting. It's a zero match grant that would pay for the majority of the HVAC upgrades to the existing portion of the building. I think it's about $78,000-$79,000 that Adam is working on doing the paperwork for. It's a guaranteed grant. We will get the grant. We just have to apply, and there is zero match on that. The other thing is we believe that we have the funds to pay for this with utilizing some funds that are currently in the budget. We will not be taking this from fund balance, and I have Michael here as well that can come up and address exactly where the funding for this project would come from if the committee approves.
You're talking to me. So the mayor's office is requesting to move leftover governor 20 and 21 money that we currently have allocated to the Goldstein building, but that project has since been put on pause. But that money did originate with COVID money back in 2020, and so we would like to get that spent, and so there's currently a little over $300,000 sitting allocated to that project, and so we would utilize those funds to hire the architect for this project, is I believe what the mayor's office was wanting.
To this point?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Well, I saw, if you have a question, you can go ahead and go first.
I was just going to ask you, did you say the Goldstein Building project is like no more, or is it just on pause?
I can't speak for the mayor's office or for the PBA, but I do know that project was paused pending some negotiations with the city on kind of what's happening at the City Plaza parking garage. I believe the cost was pretty high, higher than expected for the Goldstein renovation. But that's been my recollection. But I can't speak for the mayor. That's just been my recollection.
So if we did utilize those funds at some point, if that project becomes unpaused, then we'd have to put those funds back.
Now, yes, we would. Now, we do have a couple of other options, some projects that are left over. My recommendation when the mayor came to me was that pot first because of the nature of that money. We do have approximately $10,000 left over from the old Judicial Center renovation. From the archive addition, we've got around $50,000 left over. And then we do have another $60,000 left over, not included in the Gov 20 and 21 money, that's not part of Goldstein, that we could utilize as well. We just didn't want that money to go to waste that was sitting there. So if that project did become on pause, we could shift some of that back to that if needed.
Mr. James,
Yes, I wanted to take a minute and thank Eric for taking me out Friday. He explained this process to me, and then at the same time drove me out there to actually walk around. I'm visual. I like to see things firsthand, so I was able to see it firsthand and walk out there with the director and just walk through and see some of the changes that are coming. And the number that she said to me what stood out at me, and that was a moment for me to really kind of, in my own mind, turn around on some thoughts, was the fact that there's roughly 100 plus applicants that they don't have the space for, and so if the space is done, then 2/3 of them would be able to be admitted without any additional cost. They just need the space to actually do the classrooms, have the offices for the one-ons for the instructors or the cadre to work with them. So I appreciated that time spent and that moment, just that last little minute of going out there was very, very helpful and very, very informative, even if it is at the end of a Friday and everybody's trying to start shutting down and here we come walking right in unannounced. But with that said, and with being able to find the money, we're looking for what number again total for the?
$84,894.75.
I would like to make a motion to send this on to budget with the recommendation that we pass this forward, that we approve this, pulling those funds as Michael sees.
I've been instructed we should make that motion for not to exceed $85,000.
So amended, Michael.
Second.
we have the second, Commissioner Oliver. Further discussion? You understand this was sent to us from Property Management. Property Management had a positive recommendation. That's when they sent it to us. But they felt at that time that since this comes through this department, comes through us, they thought it should come from here. All right. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner McMurray? Commissioner James?
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Beverly?
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver?
Aye.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. All right. Probation report? Director Lisa Phillips.
Good evening. For the month of July, we closed out 136 cases for 119 individuals. We supervised 1,185 people on active probation. We had 60 participants in our programs. We had 6 successfully complete those programs, and we had 10 unsuccessfully discharged from those programs. And in the Olive Branch for the month of July, we were able to assist 3 individuals with different items, 2 of which those individuals were experiencing homelessness, and 1 of those individuals was recently released or suffering from hardship. Right now, we have 29 participants in our 10 Rocks program under Judge Bennett. We have 6 that are pending their court dates after assessment. So far, we've had 0 that have successfully completed, and right now, to date, we have 2 that have been unsuccessfully discharged. We do have 4 individuals that are scheduled for a graduation and a completion of the 10 Rocks program in September, so we're looking forward to that. For the month of July, with our expenditures and our revenue for the month, we had a difference of $58,192.99. So far this fiscal year, we've turned over $13,233 to the clerk's office to collect on probation fees through payment agreements. So far this fiscal year, $2,329 was not entered into a payment agreement for those individuals that owed those in probation fees. And so far, in the month of July, we had 9 individuals that have been deemed indigent by the court. And that would be my report.
Okay, you've heard the report. Any questions?
Motion to approve.
Motion approved.
Second.
Have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Report is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Correction Works Center. Lieutenant Cope.
Good evening. First in your packet is our minutes from our Work Center meeting, board meeting on August 7th. I'll try to be brief with this. Next, the statistics for our work release program. It's still going good. Next page would be the yearly activity report. Population is staying about the same. Next, you'll see July 2023 total trash collected on county and state routes are as follows. County roads, county trash collected 6,900 pounds. And on state routes, 674 bags were collected. Monthly worker report reflects a total combined savings of $80,296 using inmate labor. Next is our medical CQI stats. On the next page, I'm not going to go into it very much. If you would like to reach out to me by phone, we can discuss it and how this is going to affect us. But from a security and safety standpoint, I'm not going to talk about it in an open forum, but it's a new law that goes into effect January 1st. But that's for your information. Next is we had a few weeks ago had an event partnering with New Vision Church, and where we had a family event, and this is a thank you from one of the offenders that was in that event. The next is another thank you, but it is from a different standpoint, and this is a young lady who was going up for her doctorate at Trevecca, and she asked our leadership team to help with her research paper, and it's just a nice little thank you. She has graduated, and she is now Dr. Cherie, so It was very nice for her to reach out to us and let us know, and very good of my leadership team to help her with that. The next is our Tennessee Corrections Institute exit interview for our accreditation. We passed with flying colors, and we will be accepting our accreditation awarded on September the 6th. And that is my report.
Questions for the superintendent?
Congratulations on your accreditation.
Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, report is approved.
Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Juvenile detention report. Ms. Duke will not be here this evening due to an illness of a parent. I'd like to keep her mother in prayers. It was a sudden illness, so we'll not get in detail of that, but please keep that family in your prayers. We have with us tonight Captain Leon Caesar.
Good evening, everyone.
Captain.
Yes, sir. In front of you, you'll have our July report. We also have our board meeting minutes as well. And if you have any questions on the reports, I'll happily answer any questions that you have.
Commissioners?
I move to approve the report.
Motion to approve. Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, report has been approved.
I also have a contract.
Okay.
With Houston County have requested to have a contract with us. This contract is similar to all the other contracts that we currently have with numerous of other counties within the state of Tennessee. We presented this to the board. It's been approved by the board, and now we're seeking approval through you guys.
Questions on the contract or a motion?
Move to approve.
To approve. Second. Call the roll.
Commissioner McMurray,
Yes.
Mr. Sereno,
Yes.
Mr. Rather, Mr. Oliver,
Aye.
Mr. James, okay, and Commissioner Beverly,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Does pass.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, sir. All right, item 14 deals with security at 319 North Maple. This is an item that was sent to us also from property management. So we'll ask now that Ms. Lisa Crawl will come forward. County Clerk. We'll let them explain that and see where we go for that. We have the Mayor's Chief of Staff with us too.
What a difference. Well, it's been a long night, and thank you for listening to me tonight. And what we're asking for is our part-time security that's at 319 go from part-time to full-time, and the need is there. So we'll just have to work with what we already have with some additional hours every day. This will require a budget amendment on the mayor's budget. However, he is in full agreement that the need is there. And I can say he came down to the office and he took a tour so that he could see exactly what we were discussing. And I was happy to show him around. And Chairman Reed was exactly right. This was sent here with a positive recommendation from Property Management last week.
I'm just here to say that, yes, absolutely, the mayor's office is in full support of changing this person from a part-time individual to a full-time individual. We believe that this would not exceed $50,000, so any motion that is made at this point in time would need to be made to not exceed $50,000, and Finance Director Michael Smith will get the exact numbers before we get to budget.
You planning to move it from unassigned fund balance or internally on your current budget?
It'll come from his budget, but the money actually comes out of the general fund.
I think we had a question.
All right, so the security, that's kind of farmed out, subcontracted to a company, correct? So over the last year, between riding down the road and coming into your office and getting tags and trying to get my license plate from another dealer, had nothing to do with Lisa's office, it seems the same person is not there every single time. I think I've seen at least 4 different people. So you're going to have to kind of, get a different person comes in. You got to kind of not train them, but acclimate them to what you want them to do and get direction. Is that going to be difficult for you, or?
I don't believe so. I'll meet that challenge if it happens. The company that we currently have, they have a clear understanding of our expectations of what we need at 319, and they've been so willing to work with us. It's always a phone call away if something needs to be corrected or added. They've been very good to work with. So as long as they have a clear understanding of what we expect from the front end, regardless of who they send there, I would expect them to have that same understanding and be able to give that person the information. And if I experience that they don't meet our expectations, I have no problem of calling. And I have done so, and it was corrected.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve not to exceed 50,000.
Second.
Have a second. Commissioner McMurray. Further discussion?
Yes, I had a question. As far as your security needs are concerned, is there a reason why it's subcontracted out rather than have, say, sheriff's deputy there?
So actually, the security in most of our buildings is contracted out with a company called Crimson. So the gentleman who works here in this building during the day, they patrol probation, they patrol the clerk's office part-time, they patrol the parking garage, and I think there's some others as well. But it's all under one contract.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Call the roll.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner Beverly,
Yes.
Commissioner McMurray,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver,
Aye.
Chairman Reed.
Yes,
Motion passes.
it is approved. Is there other business? If not, this lets Chairman Phillips and myself go home. We've been here all day. We're adjourned.